Okay, good afternoon. This is the Steve Mazzacane podcast. We'll get going in just a few minutes. We'll talk about the president's speech last night and a few other issues related to that, some online discussions. We missed yesterday, but we were here on Tuesday with Representative Robin Comey. We'll talk about that in just a second. So give us a minute. We'll wait for people to log on. I hope everyone had a really great day. I will check. You know what? It's a good idea, as I normally do. We'll start off by checking from a stock standpoint. My main stock is Viacom, and that was a small amount up this week. To those that follow finance stocks, what have you, May 6th is their earnings. Every quarter, corporations present their earnings, and they can drastically move a stock. I'm expecting a very, very good earnings report, and so I'm hoping I can hold this into May 6th and have good results there. I am up. My entry on this stock was $40.59. It is $41.50, so I'm up about, 91 cents per share, which is actually a good return, and hoping to get more. So if you're following along on that, that's just, we'll talk about some finance stuff just to throw information out there. And that page that I'm talking about, we've shared. I'll share it again. If you'd like to join it, you're welcome to join it and have a financial conversation. I got in a very lengthy conversation over the weekend on this question of should someone pay off their house early if they can, or invest that money. And so long discussion. I'll post something on that at some point too. I will always err towards investing. Investing is about time, and that's compound interest, and put as much money as you can early in your life in the market and let it do its thing. We'll talk about this a little bit more in relation to what we saw from Biden last night in the speech. So good afternoon. It is 4:03 on Thursday, and is our last podcast for the week. On Wednesday, we had Robin Comey on. We had she was a little non-committal on some issues, and we can take that for what it's worth. But most of the comments that came in afterwards, most of the emails that came in afterwards had to do with her answers on zoning questions. So there's a caveat to this conversation. And while we try to look at issues as the issue itself and not based on a left and right narrative, we understand that politics plays a role here. And so what is almost, Richard, I'll get to you in a second. I'm not sure what that means. All the experts agree with you, but I'll get there in a second. The issue of affordable housing and zoning laws and things of that nature is an emotional one, right? These are our homes. This is our town. We don't want anyone telling us what we have to do. A lot of times bills are proposed that may not actually have any legs, may not go anywhere. They're proposed because somebody in the party decided they want to do it, or they're appeasing some constituent or what have you. And then the opposition jumps on this and says, "Oh my God, they want to take away zoning laws, or they want to add guns, or they want to," whatever emotional argument they can make. And we want to get rid of that. That said, there are some laws that fall into that category, but there are some laws that seem to have gotten some traction, and there has been some discussion in Hartford. And so we're going to spend time Monday on that. I got a call from a couple different groups. I may have someone on the podcast talking about those proposals. And we'll get to that because it's a significant issue. As we said many times, the representatives in our inner city, this isn't Democrat Republican as much as it's inner city representatives versus our towns. And they're pushing for getting those things, this idea of equity. They've used race now as, well, if a kid that's poor can somehow get to Branford, he'll have a better chance. Despite the fact that Branford actually offers some fairly unaffordable housing. There seems to be some misinformation about where people, when there's affordable housing available, state-sponsored affordable housing, can we determine where they come from? Are we actually helping Branford residents when it comes to affordable housing? I'm getting a bunch of notices in here, and it's kind of interesting about Amazon's earnings, which is apparently... Are you kidding me? I did not keep Amazon. They made money on Amazon stock. I want to stop this just for a second, but their earnings are through the roof in any event. So we do want to talk about that. We're going to get to that in far more detail Monday because I need to break down those laws, read them, see where they are, talk to the representatives, and then talk to the groups that are contacting me. On Monday, I'll try to be as informed as I can and talk about that, or perhaps have a guest on to that end. And yes, the idea of paying off, always invest. Here's one thing about your mortgage. Housing costs will always be a part of life. I know there's this thing of you take it off your stress, you don't have to worry about it. You're always going to have taxes. You can always lose your home to not paying your taxes. If you start investing at the same time, even a small amount of money, that grows, and that's your nest egg, that's your safety. If you can't pay your rent for your mortgage for some reason, that's your safety. The second one is this. Because of inflation, your mortgage on day one and your mortgage on that 30th year are two very different things. Your mortgage payment stays the same, but it essentially goes down because inflation happens. Your income is more. The value of things increases. So you have people at the end of their mortgages paying $900 a month because they got this mortgage 30 years ago. So there's a lot of things to take a look at when it comes to, do you pay off your mortgage or do you invest? Dave Ramsey, who's a well-known money guru, was big about no debt. I disagree with him on that, and I'll write about that at another point. Let's talk about Biden's speech last night. So first of all, if you're used to Trump for the last 4 years, we have seen a very different last 4 months, right? We have not seen the constant Twitter wars. We have not seen, it was unbelievably entertaining. We just haven't seen that. So we now get to a point that we're actually discussing substance. I like that. His proposal last night, I think Biden is a moderate. I think he is appeasing a little bit to the left side of his base, to the more progressives. The idea of spending $4 trillion is going to be an interesting one. Just some of the highlights that I'll go through and talk about. Some statements, my fellow Americans, trickle-down economics has never worked. That's kind of true. For the most part, money trickles up. And that's why, from an economic standpoint, I have always been in favor of stimulus packages, because eventually they trickle up anyway. I'm not looking to punish anybody. I will not add an additional tax burden on the middle class of this country. They're already paying enough. That's fine. He focuses on climate crisis, focus on jobs. He goes, from me, when I think about climate change, I think about jobs, which is true. You can move you do a lot of these jobs to energy efficient, create solar panels, things of that nature. There's still serious environmental impacts to making these things. It's like this idea that a Tesla is spectacularly energy efficient is crazy. It costs a fortune in environmental capital to build that. That said, this is part of the left's argument, and I have always been for cleaner. So I'll take all the Teslas in the world in Brantford because it's cleaner. I'd rather live in a cleaner town. This quote jumped out at me. Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class did, and unions built the middle class. It's a nice little poetic line. It's not really true. The people who built the country were very, very wealthy men. Think of our steel, our Carnegies, our steel industry, things of that nature, very wealthy men. Unions helped to build the middle class. There's no question about it, especially when labor laws were a joke. Getting people pensions, letting people who got up and went to work every day and worked hard and created that middle class, absolutely they helped do that. But the wealthy played a massive role in that too. I also go back to the same point that is missed all the time by the left. And I'm going to go to this because there's a quote by Chris Murphy in a second we're going to talk about. And that's this. The middle class retired wealthy, retired up with more money because of Wall Street, because of big banks, because of investments. Those people in those pensions, those union members may not have any understanding of what actually happened. But it wasn't just about saving money. It was about getting a return on that investment. Those are the Wall Street guys, deciding what businesses to invest in and which ones not to invest in. If you do a basic investment calculator and you put $50 a week in savings and invest it, after 15, 20, 25, 30 years, the vast majority of the money in that account you didn't put in. They're returns on investments. So this is where the statement of, Wall Street versus Main Street and rich people and big banks and Wall Street versus the little people and the middle class, they go together. Many of the wealthy on Wall Street made their money managing funds of union members. As a town, We talk about the investments for our police and fire. Those are often wealthy people talking about those things. That's how those police and those firemen and those teachers and the town workers and the people, unions at Ford and Chrysler who built the country, according to Biden, they got ahead. They had a strong fiscal retirement and were able to leave something to their children because of the return on investments given to them through Wall Street investing. This concept of one side hating the other and us versus them is political, but it doesn't actually make sense because somebody's got to do the job. If a union member just put money aside and just save that money in a 1% savings account, they would have a fraction when they retire of what they actually have based on the investments that took place, based on compound interest and investments in companies. Somebody's moving it around. Somebody's analyzing what business to get into. Somebody's analyzing what mutual fund or stock to buy. That's Wall Street. So this narrative that we push, that Biden is pushing, of us versus them, the middle class versus the big guys, is not an accurate narrative. Even more so, he mentioned last night how we're battling countries like China and Russia on an international scale. What helps us battle those countries is having large corporations. It's large corporations making the investments for technological advancements, for new computers, new building materials, new ways of doing things. And we are fighting against Chinese companies and Russian companies and Indian companies. At the end of the day, part of what makes us America is these giant corporations. There was a spectacular series of documentaries, I believe on A&E, called The Men Who Built America, and they were the wealthiest tycoons there are. They built America. Trains, steel, there's no steel. And they're also now what helps us be competitive on a world scale. This narrative of us versus them is just political. It's not economic. It has nothing to do with actual finance. It's just politics. And to that end, I will tell you 3 or 4 years ago, I was a massive fan of Chris Murphy. Primarily, he was, especially on foreign policy, he wrote very detailed foreign policy papers, and I really respected them. Even if I disagreed with his stance, I respected that he was doing the research and came out with it. But he has become, as often happens when an elected official is basically no chance of losing, like Chris Murphy is never going to lose in Connecticut, right? They become the spokesman for the party. They become some of the leaders of the vitriol. If you're a Republican who can't lose, you can do whatever you want. If you're a Democrat who can't lose, if you're a Democrat in a tough district, well, sometimes you're going to make a tough vote, right? You got to be a little quieter, stay in the background. Chris Murphy posted this, and I was so disappointed to see it. And here's the quote he posted. It says 5 hours ago, so I guess around 11 o'clock this afternoon. Chris Murphy: if you think the economy is rigged to screw average people and protect the wealthy, you should make sure to watch last night's speech. This narrative that we have a system rigged to screw average people, it's a hard statement to make when you realize one very simple fact. 95% of the people in this country couldn't tell you what the system is. They have no idea what the system is. They have no idea that if you get up and go to work every day, you don't miss work, you save 5 or 10% of what you earn, you can retire a millionaire. No idea. They make decisions every day that hurt themselves in the long run. Every single day. Now, I was looking at this phone. This is a Samsung phone. This phone cost me $1,000. And I pay, I believe, $50 a month or $41 a month to pay for this phone. Now, when I went to look at this phone, there were many options. There was a ton of options there that were $800. There were $600. This is a Samsung. You can get an iPhone for $100. You can get the iPhone 6 or 7, which texts and calls just the same as any other phone, for free. I chose to spend $1,000. The vast majority of people choose to spend $1,000. Now go on an investment calculator. Go on the Dave Ramsey investment calculator and put in what $1,000 overtime does. It's the difference between having a retirement, getting ahead, and not. We make decisions all day long that are the difference between getting ahead in a supposedly rigged system that allows you to get ahead. If you make decisions that are smart and safe, you'll get ahead. Now, I agree there are things that we have to work on. I am for lack of a better word, socialized medicine. Everybody having healthcare. Why? Because healthcare, even if you save and try to get ahead, can wipe that out. So you can save a couple $100,000. You can work every day. You can work overtime. You can really push. You can try to build this American dream, get ahead, get something, buy a house, then get cancer, not be covered to the full extent. If I have to find a way to come up with $500,000, that happens. So I'm for government stepping in to make sure we have equality of opportunity. What I'm not for is government stepping in to make sure everybody has the same outcome, that everybody can get wealthy or everybody can get ahead financially, because you can now. Chris Murphy calling the system rigged when most people don't understand what the system is a problem. That's not honest messaging. I have seen people born with nothing start at minimum wage, use that to get through college, community system, work up, save, retire at 45 or 50 very comfortably. Period. And so we can talk about a rigged system all you want, but that is disproven when you have people that come into the system with nothing and somehow leave comfortable. Not a billionaire. Billionaires' luck and inheritance. We get that. There are major tax advantages when you become rich. You can do everything inside of a corporation. We get all of those things. But this idea that it's rigged is a disincentive, a disincentivization, or whatever the word is. It discourages people from participating. You don't want to play a basketball game if you know the officials are going to make calls against you that are not true. You don't want to pay football to know it's not going to, you don't want to do that. If you're claiming the game is rigged, people don't want to participate. Instead, you should be encouraging people to get up every day and work, save, and invest. Learn the game. Go to a wealthier person or somebody better off who's made it and say, how did you do it? How did you get there? We've gotten away from that. The messaging now is the system's rigged. We need to take money from the wealthy and give it to the poor. I'm completely fine with tax increases that Biden has proposed. Capital gains a little too high. That can disincentivize some investment. I get that. But you're going to end up with around 28, 29%. It's not the end of the world. That'll happen. No problem with it. I would oh my God, push for socialized healthcare to make sure we have a level playing field. Somebody just commented here, my dad saved, did the right thing all his life and had a nice retirement. Do I agree? He got lung cancer and it wiped him out. That is awful. That's what government should be preventing. Government should be preventing that from happening. Because people, even with health insurance, can get knocked out when they get the right disease through no fault of their own. I want government to create a level playing field. So another example was, Sean Skillen proposed a child tax credit in Connecticut. And so families under $200,000 to $400,000 a year will get money. Is there any idea that they're going to use that for childcare for their kids? We have no idea. Do I support that? Not as much as I'd support a Care for Kids program or expanding it and making sure every single parent, married, single, I don't care, that wants to work or wants to go to school has an opportunity to because we have childcare. That creates a level playing field. That says we want to make sure we have a system, not a rigged system. We have a system where you can get ahead, where you can work and save and get educated. We just want to make sure you get access to the system. And the speech last night was what Chris Murphy said. If you think the economy is rigged to screw average people and protect the wealthy, that's the messaging. The whole system's rigged. My messaging is the system's not rigged. Learn it. Learn it. How is the system rigged when we talk about this system, but the middle class somehow grew in the 50s and 60s? Because they got up and went to work every day, and a percentage of their money went to their retirement. And it was invested by Wall Street tycoons. That's what happened. The system worked. We built the middle class. You can't claim we built the middle class and then say the system didn't work. The system's rigged. Why don't we have people doing the same thing today? People don't know how to get up and go to work every day. If you're wondering if this is true, go to any business in Brantford and Guilford along the shoreline right now. I guarantee you they're hiring, and I guarantee you no one's applying. They're on unemployment. They're not applying for anything. What bothered me most about Chris Murphy's comments, I responded to this. I'm going to read to you what I responded. I said, it's not rigged to screw average people. The education system fails to educate people on how the system works. You can yell in ignorance about the system or decide to learn how those that get ahead do it. And I have seen people who have nothing go up to people who have something and say, how did you get there? And they tell them, I worked hard, I invested. Now, this is the Lion's Den, right? This is Lefty Central. This is Chris Murphy. I'm a Democrat. I am all for socialized medicine. I'm for improving money going to the lower classes. I'm for higher, more progressive taxes on income taxes especially. All for it because the math adds up. But here are some of the comments you get back with my comment, which basically said, learn the system. The system works to screw the working class and the poor and has since November 4th, 1980, the night the USA died. Now, what kind of point is that? Reagan got in and it killed everybody? Didn't happen. This is over and over and over again. I'm laughing at some of these. Steve, there's an old boys group of CEOs and CFOs in this world. Most know each other. While in college, they were groomed, and they give a list of billionaires. Huh? You're not throwing out anything intelligent here. Give me a reason why the average person can't go start working at 15 like I did, or 16 or 17 or 18, or get a college degree, go to Gateway. It's not my fault you chose to go to Michigan for $150,000 a year and not Gateway. English 101 is still English 101. You made a choice. It's not my fault you decided to buy a $1,000 phone and not get the free one. You made a choice. It's not my fault you have an Amazon subscription, a Netflix subscription, and a Hulu subscription instead of just getting one of them. You made a choice. You can choose to participate or choose not to. And if you're wondering why the wealthy still get wealthy, it's because you have that $1,000 phone. And the CEO and the investors in Apple or in Samsung make more money because you handed it to them. The head of Netflix makes more money because you willingly gave them money every month. The head of Amazon makes more money because you kept ordering from Amazon. Not only did you make a choice not to partake in the system, not to save money, not to work hard, not to invest, the money you did have, you said, I want to give it to the wealthy. What Chris Murphy should be advocating for is for people learning the system. People saying, wait a minute, I'm seeing other people make it. I'm able-bodied. I'm smart. How do I make it? Instead of demonizing the system that built the middle class. The unions are still here. Companies that aren't unionized are paying union wages. Corporations are paying more than they ever have before. Right now, there's a shortage of labor. You're about to see wages increase. The person that says to themselves, I'm not accepting an excuse that our system is rigged, and instead says, I'm going to pull up my pants, go to work every single day, save 10% of what I make, put it aside, invest it, learn about this stuff, they'll get ahead. And they'll never complain about the system. Because it's Wall Street and those investments that help them get ahead. To the unions, it's Wall Street and those investments that helped you get ahead. Demonizing the system isn't helping. It just isn't. And we can yell it all day long. And it's unfortunate that Chris Murphy's not helping. Now, I understand what Joe Biden is doing. I understand the messaging. I understand he has to speak to his base. He commended Republicans on coming up with their transportation bill. And I'm all for the transportation bill if it was actually a transportation bill. There's a bunch of other stuff that's just liberal agenda items. Okay, they're in office, they won, that's what happens. So the victor go to spoils, that's fine. At the end of the day, a lot of it is just agenda stuff, though. I have no problem with more progressive tax rate. I have no idea why we're not pushing more universal health care. However, Obama made that mistake early in his term. Biden watched that, and it hurt him down the road in the midterms. Right now, Biden's just giving out money. But demonizing the system isn't helping. And if you wonder if I'm making this up, once a month, go to the Board of Finance meeting in Branford or Guilford or Madison or any town in the country you want to go to. And they will talk about how pensions are doing. They will have wealthy people come in, or people who manage funds who may not be incredibly wealthy but have a very good living. They will tell you about the returns and their analysis, what the market's doing. We can live in a little bubble and not look at those things, or we can look at those things and expand our mind and realize that this is a much bigger global system, that these huge corporations that we're demonizing actually help us on the world stage, that they've created significant amount of wealth, and that if we're smart, instead of demonizing it, we say, how do we take part in it? Now, I'll talk about fiscal literacy all day long, but that should be the focus of our school system. There's a basketball game to be played. You have to learn the rules first. Don't complain about the refs if you don't know the rules of the game. Chris Murphy's not helping the situation, calling it rigged. He's feeding crumbs of nonsense to his base. And they'll respond to it with nonsensical responses. But that's not the way the world works. If you want to get ahead, don't blame anybody else. Get up every single day, work hard, and save. And start as young as you can. Go to school at night. Don't take on $500,000 in debt for a college education. There's many other ways to get that education. Make smart decisions. If you can choose from a $30,000 car or a $12,000 car, get the $12,000 car. $1,000 phone or a $100 phone, get the $100 phone. 3 streaming subscriptions, get 1. We have the opportunity to get ahead if we take advantage of the opportunity to get ahead. If you don't, what are the rest of us supposed to do? Just standing there yelling about the system when you don't even know what the system is isn't helping us. And Chris Murphy's comments aren't helping us. And his base responding to him isn't helping anybody. I agree with most of what Biden said last night. I'm fine with the new taxes. They won't be what he proposed. And we're not going to get to 49% on capital gains. It's not going to happen. But if you had taken a couple $1,000s and put it in the bank, and I'm going to look at Amazon and put it in the bank, I don't know, an Amazon stock will say a month ago. Actually, we'll just say beginning of this month, from 3,000 to now 35.88. Almost $600 on a $3,000 investment. You made 20%. But you bought a phone instead. Or more Netflix subscriptions instead. Those are choices. Chris Murphy's message should be personal responsibility. Yes, we want to make sure there's a level playing field. We want to make sure the rules are the same for everybody. We also want to make sure you know the game, understand the game, are educated on the game, and are motivated enough to participate in the game. Let's hope that happens in their system. In near future. Bob, have you read The System, Who Rigged It and How to Fix It by Robert Reich? I don't love Robert Reich. I find a lot of his stuff to be misleading. He used to do a lot of these videos that the problem with politics is we oversimplify things. The system's rigged. System's wrong. The rich do this. Yes, the rich have control of politics, and often they get tax advantages and rules in place that help them. Okay? No question. That's true. However, the barrier to entry that even existed 40, 50 years ago doesn't exist now. We can talk all you want about anybody can buy stock. There's a million stories of 17-year-old kids starting with $1,000, or one was $15,000. They got at a bar mitzvah, and they took it and turned it into $200,000 and learned how to day trade. If you don't want to do that, you can learn to buy a mutual fund. You can learn to save. You can learn to make small decisions. Small decisions made consistently. The right small decisions creates freedom down the road. You decide not to spend $5 on a latte every morning. You save what? $35 a week times 52. What is that? $1,800 a year. Now you have an option to do something. You can invest that money. What would that mean in 10, 15, 20 years? And you're talking about wealth? You want to talk about those multimillionaires or billionaires? They got it because their grandfather saved, bought property. They inherited that. That person saved, bought more property, grew it. They inherited that. That's what happened. You can yell about Donald Trump. Yes, he inherited his money. But somebody started with nothing. Somebody bought property. Somebody invested. Somebody did the work, and he ended up getting it. I don't have a lot of respect for the outcome of his investments. He could have taken the money he inherited, put it in in stock, and made just as much money. But that's how it happens. We have this conversation all the time. This concept of systemic racism is all about saying that white families have money that is passed on generation to generation that black families didn't have an opportunity to. That may be true to a certain extent, but it's not true now. And if you want to yell that the game is rigged, you have to first learn the game, and you have to participate in the game. The people yelling that it's rigged don't know what the rules are. The rules are the same as they were in the 50s and 60s when the middle class grew. Work hard and save money. It's the same. And you get there by making smart decisions. It's the same rules. There's nothing new. There's a million books on personal finance, and they all say the same thing a different way. Work hard and save money. Once you have some saved, start investing in property, in stocks, in whatever. That's it. And the people yelling how rigged it is don't deliberately work to not know the rules of the game. Paulina, that's what Christmas Review wants you to believe, that it's all Reagan in and everything, but in reality, it's not. Reagan made mistakes. I think he, destroying all the homeless shelters, those are awful. I mean, I'm not for him. Reagan did something that I think Republicans don't understand. The biggest stimulus package in history was under Reagan, when he drastically exploded spending on the military. That was basically a stimulus package. That's all it was. Military families, Pratt and Whitney, Sikorsky, all huge communities were built on Reagan spending on stimulus. You can talk about being conservative and not wanting to spend money. He spent a fortune. So there's some things he did wrong. The average person doesn't understand what he did. I bought Amazon years ago, and when it was, I don't even remember. But bought it and I'm sitting pretty just because I invested. Yes. And diversify. And you can learn things, how to diversify and buy different sectors and rotate sectors, what's hot, what's not, what have you, or you can just give it to somebody to manage. But that's how the game is played. The rules have not changed. Work, save, invest, repeat. Work, save, invest, repeat. And you wake up one day and you realize you have hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're fine. You can make decisions. You're free. That's not a rigged system. It's a system where people are refusing to learn the very simple rules. Okay, that's our last podcast for the week. On Monday, we will talk about those zoning laws. We got a lot of emails on them, so I have to do more research into what's proposed and then what laws actually have a chance of being discussed or passing committee to the point that they're legitimate. A lot of these laws are put out there, like hundreds, if not thousands of laws are proposed every session. Most never get anywhere. I need to look at that first. Once I see that, I'll discuss in more detail what's being proposed on Monday. Guys, thanks for a great week. And I think it'll be a great weekend. I will see you Monday at 4:00. And for all of you, I hope you have a great night.